Today's episode, advanced Amazon SEO strategies for brands to boost sales rank. With more than 2 million products on Amazon, nobody's browsing for your product on Amazon to buy it. They are searching for your product. And if you want to get seen, you've got to know SEO. I'm Jason Boyce, founder and CEO of Avenue 7 Media and host of the Day 2 podcast. One of our in-house experts, Shannon and I, is with us today to break down his techniques and the techniques that Avenue 7 uses for advanced SEO strategies to help boost those sales, increase your rank, and drive more profit to the bottom line. Shannon, how's the summer going?
It's hot beyond all recognition.
Oh, is it like 200 degrees in Atlanta now?
Well, it's in Georgia, it's hot and humid, and it's not the heat, It is the humidity.
Yeah.
So, I like to take the dogs on a walk in the morning, but you got to get up at like 5 or 6 a.m. to do that because by the time, 7 or 8 rolls around, it's already too hot. So We're doing well. Thank goodness for air conditioning. I'm eating that up and enjoying it. But other than that, how's the weather in Portland?
Oh my God, it's beautiful. 75, sunny. People are all on the river today, the Willamette, and just picked up my daughter from cheer camp. It's camp time, Shannon. Are your boys in camp right now? Because camp pickup and drop off is killing me.
They are. I dropped them off today for spy camp. They're getting picked up in about 15, 20 minutes.
Camp.
We'll see
That's amazing. All right, let's talk about the topic at hand. Why is SEO, search engine optimization, so very important?
Amazon is the starting point of 65, probably 75% of all product searches. And most people, the vast majority, they're not going to a browse node. They're not going to home and then, clicking into subcategories. They're going to the search bar and typing in what they want. And so with the majority of sales coming from those search terms, it's so important that brand owners in particular, and really every seller on Amazon, understands what keywords are identifiable or relevant for their product that they can both include in the listing and advertise on to get in front of that prospective audience. And so, that's sort of the first part. But if you think about it from that standpoint, the more keywords that you can identify, the more you have the ability to rank for and be indexed for over time. And so we're going to talk about that today. But in my opinion, I've said this many times on the podcast before, but success on Amazon is organically ranking for your product's most highly searched relevant keywords. That's the win. Because if you're in a position where you're having to pay for a majority of your traffic or a large percentage of your traffic, it's not going to be very profitable. It's going to be very, very expensive. The win is, how do you orchestrate the listing optimization, the advertising, increase organic rank so that when somebody searches for a product term that identifies your product, you show up at the top and you get that click, not because you paid for it, but because you invested in SEO for your listing.
I follow this. I follow your instructions, and I'll get 99.9% of my orders from organic rank. True or false?
Definitely false. Yeah,
okay.
Because you have to continue investing in advertising to keep your rank. Amazon is a pay-to-play platform. They are not backing off on the number of advertised placements on Amazon. That's probably never going to change. At some point, organic search may go away altogether and it'll just be 100% paid. Honestly, Jason, going back, it's why Google lost out on product search, because you used to be able to list your product for free on Google search and they said, nah, we're going to charge you for it. And so, yes, they're making more revenue from that as opposed to offering free. But honestly, I think Amazon's going to crush Google in terms of the product advertising that they're going to be able to capitalize on in the next few years. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So yeah, you're going to have to pay for advertising every step of the way. But the other part is, just because I'm providing the steps, there's what I call the 3 levels of execution. So the 3 levels of execution are knowing what to do. Step 2 is knowing how to do it. And step 3, or level 3, I should say, is being good at doing it. So even though we're going to be talking about what to do and a little bit about how to do it, it requires a lot of expertise to actually execute this in a manner that's truly going to impact your brand. Had great conversations with people following up on Prosper. Such an honor to speak there. And I'm talking with brands that have been doing this for 4 or 5, 10 years. and they were able to learn something new. There's still things that they were still figuring out after all those years. It's not something as simple as some of the other aspects of Amazon, for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the keywords change. Stuff changes, right? Yeah, I'm always amazed at looking at the amount of new keywords on a quarterly basis for a given product that's been selling for 12 years. You would think if a product's been in the market for more than a decade, that there wouldn't be any new keywords that you could add to that campaign, but it's constantly changing. Can you explain that?
Probably not well, but I mean, you just look at human language. You look at the evolution of human language. There's a reason why we add new words to the dictionary every year. The dictionary does not necessarily represent how people ought to speak, but rather how people do speak.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of something that we have to understand, that regardless of what we think people should be searching, we need to look at what people are actually searching. And so you have an element where you have new demographics coming in to the marketplace. You've got new, age brackets who are being exposed to Amazon and e-commerce and other platforms, and they're going to have different language and terminology for how they look for something. And not only that, Jason, but we live in such a global society, even right here, obviously in the United States, that people bring their own language differences to them. And even if you're on Amazon.com and you have English as your preferred language, people still search in Spanish, right? And other languages. So there's a lot to consider. No, I have no idea why it evolves, but I think
you just did a good job of explaining that, Shannon. Well done. That wasn't...
I tried.
That wasn't on our question list. I like to throw you curveballs on these episodes to see, if you're paying attention. All right, Shannon, before we dive into your specific processes and in our, some of our Av 7 processes for these advanced Amazon SEO strategies, we talk to a lot of brands. We love them all. And I know that you even talk to a lot of folks outside of our brands that we manage. But what are some of the common misconceptions or areas of confusion that sellers have about Amazon SEO?
Yeah, one of the biggest ones is simply that most of the people who wound up doing Amazon SEO came out of the Google world, right? So in a previous life, I did web design. And so we use tools like SEMrush to do Google SEO keyword research. And there was this whole process for building out a web page. And, Google has these multiple points of contact where you've got your title tags, you've got your H1 header, you've got your intro paragraph, you've got your different H2, H3 headers, and then you've got your closing text, and then you've got anchor links and all these different places that you can reinforce keywords. And so one of the biggest misunderstandings that a lot of sellers and brands have because of this sort of parlay from Google into Amazon is not understanding the difference between indexing and ranking. And so let's just address and clear that up with the audience real quick, and then we'll move on to the second part. But indexing really just means that your keyword is included in your listing or on your web page, and that the search engine, Google or Amazon, has taken a look at your page, identified those keywords, and indexed them, and knows that those keywords are associated with your page. That's really all it means. And ranking, people come in, back when I would do coaching, they'd say, I just launched my product. We included all this great SEO that we found, and I'm still not on page 1, right? And they launched yesterday. It's like, okay, there is a difference between being indexed and ranking. Indexing is that the search algorithm knows what is relevant for your products, but ranking comes only through a combination of other things that have to be sustained over time. And so now let's talk a little bit about the difference between Google and Amazon, because a lot of people try to apply Google SEO strategies to Amazon and they don't work. And so one of the biggest ones that I've heard is kind of funny, but Google, like I said, they like reinforcement. So there's all these different points on a web page where Google likes to see the same keywords over and over and over and again. And what that does is it reinforces to Google, yes, this page is very highly relevant for this keyword, right? And so it's what we do on our own website, right? Very high targeted, relevant keywords. And Amazon really only needs your keyword to be indexed one time. It really only needs to be there one time. And it's usually best if it's a high search volume, high relevant keyword, want to put it in the title. But it can also be in the product features. In some cases, it can be in the search terms in the back end or in the product description. They're all indexed by Amazon. The difference is in the way that Google and Amazon do ranking, because that's where you start to see things sort of really break off. And so Google really cares about engaging content, right? They're in the content delivery business. Google wants you to click, search a term, you click on the page, and they want to avoid what they call high bounce rate, which means you go to the page and go, this is not what I was looking for, you bounce back to the search results. If I click on that page and go, this is interesting, and I stay there for several minutes reading through, Google goes, hey, your page is relevant. We're going to serve your page higher. And there's some other backlinks and other things that Google will do to sort of increase your rank. Amazon is not like that. Amazon cares about product purchases, what you always say, clicks and sales. So I don't care if you've got and Amazon doesn't care if you have your primary keyword 17 times in your listing. It's still only going to be indexed one time. You cannot be indexed more than once. The ranking piece comes in that search and click and purchase process. And that's why I said, the aspect of, being able to advertise a new product, get it in front of customers, get those clicks, get those sales, and the algorithm say, you know what? This new product is doing pretty well. Let's serve it higher. In fact, after a month or two, it's actually outperforming its competitors. These other former best-selling products for this keyword, this one is actually doing better. We're going to actually place it organically above some of those other ones. And that's really what Amazon cares about. So just to clear up some of the confusion, indexing and ranking, Google and Amazon, very different strategies. You've got to understand both. And if you can understand and dissect each one, then you can execute a much more effective strategy.
I'll add one more in terms of common misconceptions as well, Shannon.
Please.
I think that there is this, not with everyone, sophisticated brands understand this, but they think that you could take a mediocre product, and if you know all the tricks of the trade, right? If I know all the stuff that Shannon knows in terms of Amazon SEO, with my mediocre product, I can really trick the system and I can do well. How's that work on Amazon?
It's kind of funny because as I was doing research for this podcast, mostly just looking at our title and that kind of thing, I searched YouTube, and it's just yes, this will be on YouTube. Hopefully this will rank and outrank some of these other ones out there. But it's like the 17 hacks to, super hack your way to first position in organic rank. None of that applies if you've got a crappy product. And the other thing that we haven't even talked about, an episode for another day, and we'll have to have Liz Lavallee on for this, but the click-through rate to your listing based on how you optimize your listing and the conversion rate of your product detail page, 100% play into this whole piece. You can have the best SEO in the world, and if you've got a crappy product, to your point, or a crappy detail page, doesn't matter. It's not going to work.
Amazon cares what you buy. The more you can do to help convince that shopper that they have found in your product the right thing that they're looking for, and it converts better, the better off you are. And that's not always, I think it's a great call out, Shannon, the difference between Google and Amazon. I always love it when we have client calls and they have their Google expert on the call with our ads folks or our SEO folks, and they're trying to dictate what we should do. And we're like, wait a minute, are you the Amazon expert? Because this team right here has about 40 years of experience just on this call. And, we have to identify that these things are different and treat them differently. So it's a great call out. Appreciate that. All right, let's dive into this process. What's step one when talking about, do we talk about the first step as an advanced Amazon SEO strategy, or is step one before you get to the advanced part?
Step one, it really is the first part of advanced strategy, because most people don't even do this. I consider this step one from an advanced perspective. A lot of people are just going to sort of look the general terms that they believe customers are using. They're going to do some reverse ACE and look up on competitors. They're looking for those high search volume keywords. I actually have a very different strategy. And so the first step in the SEO process, from my standpoint, that I walk through and we leverage with our team is, how do you identify the target terms, what I call target terms? And what target terms are, they are the individual keywords that will eventually make up the customer search terms. So there's a little bit of back and forth. You're looking at the SEO, you do some research, you can do a reverse ACE and lookup. I love Helium 10. It's a great tool. I know Jungle Scout and some other ones have similar tools like that. But as you're going through the keywords that customers are searching, you begin to identify specific keywords that customers are using in conjunction with your primary keyword. Things like soft or tasty or for toddlers or for toddlers 1 to 3 years of age, right? There's all these sort of like nuanced add-ons. And so what I actually do is we start with an Excel spreadsheet, but it's really looking at all these different columns of what identifies your product. What are the materials? Who's the audience? What are the benefits? What are the certifications of the product and so forth? And it really does allow you to understand not just the handful of keywords that your product's relevant for, but the opportunity to discover all of the keywords that your product is relevant for. And so that's why I would say this is an advanced step, even though it's number one, because most people are not doing this process. But I can tell you for certain, 100% guaranteed, you discover more keywords relevant to your product. You discover more long tail keywords, which you're typically going to get at a lower cost per click and a higher conversion rate. And in general, you discover more keywords in terms that you can infuse into your listing so that your listing has the ability to be indexed for those keywords and eventually ranked for those keywords. So for me, yes, it sounds, like step one is sort of beginner. It's not. Step one is very much advanced because most people aren't doing it, but it is absolutely foundational and fundamental to building a great listing and creating a great ad strategy that you can build on, again, to organically rank for your product's most highly searched relevant keywords.
You're right. There's definitely parts of this that can be considered beginners, but when you do the full Monty, as you just described, including some very manual processes to sort of identify and group these themes together, it does become advanced quickly. Shan, you often talk about this internally over here, the SEO funnel. Break down a little bit what that looks like for brands and sellers. What is that advanced Amazon SEO funnel? What's this thing about, and how should we look at it?
People use sales funnel all the time, and the terminology is a little different. I don't know if anybody else uses the term SEO funnel. I used it for my Prosper Show talk.
You heard it here first, folks.
But the way I define it is, for your SEO funnel is really about how relevant is that search term to your product. The bottom of the funnel is customers searching for a specific product with high purchase intent. That's the definition of bottom of funnel SEO. It's very, very specific. I am looking for a blue bonnet for a 5-year-old girl. That's very, very specific, right? Very, very relevant. And the goal is to reach those immediate customers that are looking specifically for your product and generate those initial reviews and that social proof to increase sales velocity and organic rank, especially if you're launching a new product, right? And one of the things that we probably get more pushback about from, brands than anything else is defensive brand advertising. I'm not talking about brand ads. I'm talking about your brand name and defensively advertising that, because that is the definition of bottom of funnel SEO. It is customers looking specifically for your brand, your product, with a very high purchase intent. And I can tell you again for certain, if you are not defending your brand, somebody else is just nabbing those top spots, the brand ads at the top, sponsored products, sponsored brand video, and they're getting them for pennies on the dollar because you're not defending your brand. It's what you always, say is basic blocking and tackling. And so bottom of the funnel is those branded terms and those very specific, highly relevant keywords that customers are searching with very high purchase intent. And that's the bottom of the SEO funnel.
It reminds me of another question. I'm often reminded of Jason Fried, who's of Basecamp fame, how he's come out publicly and really complained about the fact that on Google, he has a registered trademark and he has to defend his branded keywords on Google to block his competitors from advertising against them. I feel like if he was selling a physical product, he'd be making the same argument with Amazon, especially for folks who've gone through the trouble of getting brand registry and using that. I'd like to add to my, we often talk about our wish list or our Christmas list for Amazon features. I would love for Amazon to find a way to not make brands have to pay for their branded traffic if they're a brand registered brand who's been vetted on the Amazon platform. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, but it would be very nice. And so, Shannon, are you suggesting here also on the bottom of the funnel when you talk about branded, were you speaking specifically about advertising and defending those branded keywords, or were you also talking about using some of the branded keyword phrases and putting them together in a way in SEO and the content of the listing in order to get more organic placements for those as well?
Initially, it's simply understanding as we group these keyword phrases that we discover together, where in the funnel do they belong, right? So if I find branded keywords, and a lot of times we'll have brands come to us and they're not even aware what their own branded keywords are because people search for their brand in ways that they're not familiar with.
Right.
And they have no idea what their search volume for their own brand name terms are. And so it's really about understanding which bucket does it go to. And then we'll talk a little bit about, once we understand those buckets, what do we do with those buckets later on. But with that said, let's move to middle of the funnel. So now that we've sort of covered bottom of the funnel, mid-funnel SEO is customers that are searching for a product that achieves a similar result, but is not necessarily your product specifically. And so, a great example, one of the clients that I worked with in the past, a coaching client, has this great product called Epsomit. It is an Epsom salt lotion. It's like 4x, 5x concentrate. And it's so much more convenient than taking an Epsom salt bath, right? Nobody really wants to pour the Epsom salt in there, and nobody has time to take a bath anyways. And so it's so great because what people are really looking for is pain relief from soreness or from a muscle injury or, some of those sort of issues that we face in daily life. And so what people are really searching for is the end result.
Yeah.
And so if I'm looking for a gel or a cream or something that can loosen my muscles or help my muscles recover, then that's considered keywords that would fall in that mid-funnel for SEO. It doesn't exactly identify the product. They're not looking for an Epsom salt cream because not as many people know that product exists, but it is definitely the right customers who are looking for a product that solves their problem and may have done it in a different way than they expected. And so it's really about getting beyond your immediate brand awareness, your immediate customer reach. We're having to invest in another level, so when you get to advertising, but understanding those keywords is equally important because it's got to be part of your strategy, right?
Yeah, the word consideration keeps popping into my head because, thinking about DSP advertising, but this is the consideration bucket. This is folks have a problem. They're looking for a product to solve it or give them a certain type of benefit. And they don't have a certain brand name or a product that in mind, but they're in the aisle. This is a great one, mid-funnel, in terms of getting new customers, I would imagine, new to brand, mid-funnel. Okay, so bottom of funnel, mid-funnel, and what's the top of the funnel look like?
Top of funnel is customers who fit your target avatar, right? Your sort of ideal customer, but they don't know your product exists. They may not even know your brand exists, but they may be interested. I mean, this is sort of like a higher level of consideration, but it's really even before consideration. They may consider purchasing if they come across it. This is beyond even a similar product that achieves the same result, and more in the stance of if we've got a company that we represent that sells a baby product, right? It's just advertising on other baby products. The customer wasn't even looking for your baby product, but we know that it's a mom or a dad of a newborn, and they're probably going to be in the market and go, yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about buying that, but now that you mention it. And so these are not likely to be direct, high converting keywords necessarily. But if somebody's searching for baby diapers and you say, by the way, I've got this really cool baby cup that doesn't spill and it's got all these other benefits and it's great in the car and it keeps, drinks hot or cold or whatever. And those are the kind of things that you can get in front of your target audience, even though the exact search term, what they're actually searching for, it isn't 100% relevant.
What's an example of a great top of funnel keyword?
Again, it's, if we're looking at baby products, it's like baby diapers, right? Now that's probably expensive, but it's going to get you in front of the right audience. DSP just takes it to a whole nother level where we're really just doing audience targeting. It's kind of the same concept, but it's relying on that search term first. And, it's important to note that for listing optimization, we're probably not going to take those top of funnel keywords and put them in the listing because we're going to kind of screw up the algorithm. If we put diaper in the back of that keyword, search bucket, it's not really going to identify the product. We're going to probably waste a lot of money in auto campaigns and auto ads if we do that. But it is something to be mindful of. Once you sort of create those three buckets, grab the keywords, identify where they go. Now we've got a plan that we can outline and map out in terms of what we do with those.
Got it. Okay, so when you're looking at your target keywords, you're keeping this funnel in mind. is what you're saying. You're going to
Yes.
identify your bottom of the funnel, your mid funnel, your consideration, and then even, the top of funnel is very interesting because it's often the most expensive keyword to advertise in sponsored products as well. And so I thought what you were suggesting was, include some of those top of funnel keywords in the copy. I don't know how you would avoid keeping those terms in the copy if you're doing a good job of describing your product, but you're suggesting this is a really critical part of that target keyword creation. Am I tracking, Shannon?
And again, with the target terms, what you're primarily identifying is bottom funnel, mid funnel, right?
Okay, got it.
And so, because that's really relevant to the product.
Yeah.
And the way I map it out is I call it an alternate term. So for example, if we've got a product that's made out of plastic, but a lot of people are looking for that product with the keyword silicone. Well, our product isn't technically silicone. We're going to target plastic first. But once we've fully capitalized on plastic, we're advertising on plastic, we've got plastic in the listing. Now we're going to go after that consideration bucket of mid-funnel and say, let's advertise on silicone and see if we can convince them that our plastic product is better than the silicone product that they were looking for. Like I said, I'll consider those alternate terms in the target terms list, but the target terms are primarily for bottom funnel and mid funnel.
Sure.
And this is the most important thing. Once you organize these keyword groups, it is the most ROI impactful thing that you will do is deciding which ones are you going to target first. Where do you put your dollar? And this is kind of the best analogy I can come up with, Jason. I don't play slot machines, but we go to Vegas every year for Prosper Show. But say for example, I've got three slot machines and they only pay out so much and you can only play each one for so long. The first one, if I put in $1, I get out $5. The second one, I put in $1, I get out $3. And the third one, I put in $1 and I get out $2. I'm going to play the $5, the 1 to 5 as long as I possibly can. I'm going to put every single dollar I can until that thing stops paying out.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to move to mid funnel. And now I'm going to start playing the $3 slot machine and getting every $3 payout I can. And then once that's fully exhausted, now I'm going to go to the last one and get a 1 to 2 return. So understanding that is so important because if you're trying to jump from bottom of funnel to top of funnel, it's going to get very expensive very quickly. And it means there's all this lower hanging fruit there that you didn't consider. And, from an investment standpoint, we've talked to a lot of businesses in this sort of macro environment. I don't think the economy has showed as much volatility as people, I think, expected it to, maybe at the beginning of the year. But from a cash flow standpoint, cash flow is very, very important. So where you put your next dollar is super important. And starting at the bottom of the funnel, and I say fully exploit and fully capitalize on that bottom of the funnel until you fully maximize it. And then, and only then, do you move up to mid funnel and do the same thing. Fully capitalize on it, fully exploit it before you move to top of funnel.
It's funny, Shannon, as I'm hearing you describe this funnel, it's very interesting. It's hard for me to do this as well. It seems like it's hard for you to differentiate the keyword, the SEO from the advertising, right? I want to take a moment to talk about that.
They're inextricably linked.
It's hard, right?
They're inextricably linked at some point. Yeah.
Especially on Amazon. And I'm sure this isn't an accident on Amazon's part, but it has been clear from the very first time I ran a sponsored product ad, a PPC ad on an automatic campaign, that advertising drove organic rank. Now, I don't know if this is purposeful or this just happens to be the way the ranking algorithm works, but it's really hard when you're talking about Amazon to not talk about SEO keywords and advertising. And by the way, that's not necessarily the case when we talk to our clients we're helping sell on Walmart. Walmart advertising doesn't necessarily drive organic rank in the same way. In fact, Walmart, I would argue, puts more weight in making sure that the listing is completed and filled out than even some of the advertising. And in fact, you can't even have multiple placements on an ad and organic ranking if your organic ranking is really good on Walmart. So Amazon is unique in this way. How critical of a role does advertising play in organically ranking on Amazon in your mind?
I actually think that the way the algorithm is designed makes sense.
Yeah.
Because from Amazon's standpoint, developing that A9 algorithm is the more that a customer searches a specific term and purchases a product, the more relevant it is.
Yeah.
and the more it deserves to be put at the top. So to be honest, if I would actually like Amazon less if advertising and organic rank were completely disconnected, because as a new brand, it would mean that you would never have the opportunity to really move up in organic rank, right? If I start off on page 7 and I've got to pay advertising, and that advertising never actually moves me closer, then I'm having to go back to what we first started with. I'm having to pay for every single click. And so I actually think the way the algorithm designed is smart. I'm not saying that Amazon doesn't overcapitalize on it, but I do think that the way it's designed makes sense, that the more a customer searches for any term and finds a product organically or advertised and converts, that product is going to increase in organic rank. Amazon may weight the advertising more heavily than they perhaps ought to. I can't speak to that. I don't know the inside the black box, but from my perspective, because of how competitive it is, I think it's actually necessary that they're tied specifically for companies launching a new product. Otherwise, you'd always stay on page 10. You'd never be able to get past that without some correlation.
How do you do this? You've got your target SEO keyword list that you're talking about. Your bottom funnel and mid funnel especially, you've placed these keywords in the appropriate places in the Amazon listing. And maybe you can identify some of those on this call for our listeners as well. Do you advertise on every single one of those keywords? Do you advertise on some of those keywords? What is that relationship? How do you go about that?
Again, going back to the SEO funnel, we start at the bottom. We advertise on our branded keywords and our most highly searched relevant keywords. And some of these keywords, Jason, we only think that they're relevant. We think that this product is relevant for this keyword. Turns out, customer gets to decide. We don't get to decide if our product is relevant for keyword. The customer decides that. And so testing these groups of keywords in buckets and says, okay, I think my product is soft. I think my product is, made for a certain age. Turns out the customer doesn't think so, right? They're like, well, I know you're advertising this for 4-year-olds. My 4-year-old couldn't figure out how to use it. I think you're wrong. And so there's an element of testing these keywords and validating them through advertising. And that may actually then change and influence what we keep in our title, what we keep in our product features and our product listing, right? We may discover new keywords that we hadn't considered before in advertising. And we may discover that there were keywords that we thought were really relevant. And we go, you know what? Let's pull those out. And that's why our team focuses on relentless optimization. You can never stop optimizing. The listing and the advertising both inform each other. And honestly, Jason, the biggest thing the mistake that I would say most sellers make is they focus on advertising keywords and fail to take into account the organic rank of their product for those keywords. Where you go into the advertising dashboard and you're looking at this ACoS, it's sort of this very narrow-minded aspect of advertising, and just optimizing for ACoS and not paying attention to the TACoS, what we call the total acquired cost of sale, really your media efficiency rate, you're really flying blind. And people can make very bad decisions pulling a lever that they think is going to increase their sales, and all of a sudden realize, oops, I pulled the wrong lever, and watch that sales come down. And the reason that happens is they are looking at only the ad spend to ad revenue, and not taking into account how that ad spend impacts organic rank, which is the definition of success on Amazon.
Oh, that's worth restating again, Shannon, because I think this is the key highlight that I want our listeners and our viewers to take from this episode. Advanced Amazon SEO strategies involve making sure that you're identifying the keywords through your advertising that are converting, and you're making sure that those keywords have an effective SEO strategy in the listing to help drive your organic ranking as well. Shannon, is it fair to summarize it in that way?
100%. And vice versa. We look at keywords that our clients are ranking for, and we've discovered great keywords. We're like, holy cow, I never would have thought of that as a target term, Jason. But here our product is ranking for it because maybe an auto campaign, again, customers decide what's relevant. And so we go, well, holy cow, I'm ranking for this spot 17 or spot 20. let's see what happens when we A, include that in the listing, and B, start advertising on it. Now, all of a sudden, we get more sales. We're indexed for more keywords. We're ranking for more keywords. And it all just goes into understanding what are all the keywords that your product can be relevant for, and how do you get your product to index for them and rank for more of them.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree. I don't think it can be stated better. And the last thing that I want to say, this is actually something that I've really only tweaked this last piece this last week. But the key to advertising, the key to success is advertising specific products against specific search terms. And too often we see, I did a lot of consulting and coaching prior to joining Av7, and I get to peek under the hood from different companies and brands and look at their ad strategy. They would be advertising multiple products against multiple keywords, and there was no specificity of this customer is looking for this thing, and we want to show them this product. And it's sort of a shotgun approach as opposed to a sniper approach. But the last piece that I really realized and identified and want to add in is it's not just specific products against specific keywords. It's specific products against specific keywords with specific messaging.
Yeah.
Because now with brand ads and sponsored brand videos, we can actually speak to the customer in a way through our creative. And so we're having some really exciting conversations. I mean, obviously every agency does this to some extent, but how do you get even more snapped in so that if a customer is searching for this term, not only are we showing them the right product, but the messaging really infuses the confidence of that customer. Wow, this is exactly what I was looking for, right? This is exactly, they totally get it. How many times have you searched something on Amazon very specifically and you see a brand ad and it has just very generic copy? You're just not convinced at all, right? So the goal is to alleviate that, speak to the customer with the messaging that will convert them to a sale.
That's a really important point. It took me a long time to understand this because the keywords and the campaigns and the groups that you create, and I would imagine the same thing happens on SEO keywords, but Amazon just isn't serving that to everyone, right? The products that they're grabbing, those keywords are attached to a specific audience that Amazon has under the hood. And if you have one benefit of your product, let's say your product is meant for toddlers, but because of a bad grouping, you end up grabbing an audience that's like grandparents, maybe you're not going to have as much success. So I don't think that was a very good example, but this whole relationship between keyword groupings and audience is, I think, a very important one. And I got to be honest, Shannon, I don't think a lot of people understand how that works. But it's critical when thinking about your keyword strategy or advanced Amazon SEO strategies. And then also, like you said, you can't have one without the other, your advertising strategy as well.
It brings up two important points that I have to say in this episode because they're so important. Number one is, if your campaign happens to find a really good audience, you could just knock it out of the park for maybe one or a handful of your keywords.
Don't kill it.
We've seen this before. Do not kill that sucker.
Don't
Let it
kill
run. Never, ever, 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 ever getting back together. No, but it's really about letting that run because your campaign, Amazon has identified an audience and it's finding it. And there are certain tools and certain, ad specialists say, oh, well, this keyword's converting great. Let's create a new campaign. And there is no guarantee. In fact, there's very low chance that that's going to find the exact same audience and convert to the exact same extent. It's just not the way it is. So that's number one, is just don't kill those campaigns when they're working well, because that campaign history is valuable and because the audience that campaign found, you can't just ask Amazon to move that audience over to another campaign. It's just not going to happen.
Really good. You said there was a couple of points. Was it just the one? That's a big one.
Well, it was both of those. It was make sure that you understand that there's an audience attached, and then don't kill those legacy campaigns, and try to move those keywords over. You can as you're building out new campaigns, but don't kill the old ones.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm begging you. Don't kill them.
Yeah, I'm begging you as well. Please don't do that. This is a lot of work. There's none of this is set it and forget it. Not only do you have to do a lot of work up front, you have to then layer on advertising. You have to learn from the advertising. You have to go back and change things in your SEO based on what you've learned from ads and in the history of selling. How in the world can anyone do this?
It takes a village now to run an Amazon brand. And honestly, we have clients that have a product. It's not about the number of products. We have clients that have one product, and it takes an entire village to make that product be successful on Amazon. It's one of the things that I love about our team, and it's one of the things I love about our strategic approach and our framework. A lot of people look at it, and I used to as well. It was optimize, and you optimize your listing, you drive traffic, and you analyze results. There's a lot more to consider, because if your listing gets taken down, it doesn't matter if you're doing good advertising.
Yeah.
And if you've got a well-optimized listing and you're out of stock, it also doesn't matter. Like, there's so many things that play into the consideration. And our team, I honestly believe, has the most holistic framework for looking at every single element that impacts a client's brand and their product success, that it's so exciting. When you partner that with the technology and the team and everything else that we do, it's so much fun.
You know, the best part, Shannon, none of them are hacks. These are all tried and true processes that have been repeated over and over with great outcomes from a team who knows what they're doing. They've been around the block. So look, Shannon, thank you. I know our viewers and listeners appreciate your knowledge here on advanced Amazon SEO strategies. We'll do more episodes of SEO because it's changing a lot. It's often changing, and we can also come back on once in a while and just remind our folks. In the final analysis here, SEO is necessary. It is table stakes. If you're not doing it, you're losing out to your competitors. There's a lot involved with it. If you don't have a full team, you can call us, of course, but you can also focus on doing this with your best seller. See how far this strategy can get you with your best seller, fine-tune that process, and then execute it and roll it out with the rest of your ASINs over a period of time. But great stuff. Shannon, thank you again for jumping on and sharing your knowledge.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Shannon. If you're ready to start growing and protecting your brand on Amazon with a team of experienced Amazon operators, you can visit us at day2podcast.com. That's day2podcast.com. And lastly, if you have any questions or like to request topics to be discussed in future episodes, leave them in the comments or in a review. And as always, thank you for listening.